Hello YouTubers, I woke up this morning with the remnants of a migraine, and as you can tell we're outside of Leander Club, so we've made it to training, and today I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about training when you're ill. And so I'm not ill, I just have the remnants of a migraine and I know how to deal with the migraine, dealt with it before, but I know a lot of people think they need to train all the time, and then when they get ill they train, and that is probably one of the worst things you can do for training, is training when you're ill. So we're going to talk about that today, but the biggest thing is do not train when you're ill. So we're going to talk about how to know when you're ill, how to know when to train, and then how to know when to not train. So let's get into the club first, get changed, get ready, get on the water, and then we'll talk about training when you're ill or not training when you're ill. So let's get to it. We've made it into the crew room to fuel up on the breaded egg toast today. We went for an extra large addition to fuel up. We've got a half hour coming up, so a lot of energy will be required for that, and as well as recovering for yesterday with a lot of mileage and making sure the fuel is there to fuel the body. But we're talking about training when you're ill, and one thing about that is if you are ill, if you think you are ill, just don't go to training. Use your phone, use the technology you have been given to communicate with the coaches, whether it's a text, a phone call, a Snapchat, a DM, I don't know, to your email, fax, to your coach, to let them know that you're not going to be in today and make sure you're extra recovered. But how do you know what ill is ill? Now to play some Risk and fuel up, because remember, food is fuel. And we've made it outside here, overlooking the glass water after fueling up, because remember, food is fuel, and a little bit of a drizzle going on. But we're talking about training or not training when you're ill. And I mentioned earlier about me sleeping through migraine, and for me that is controllable, and I'm able to, especially if I sleep through it, it's just that sort of remnants of it that are there for me to deal with, rather than if I actually had a migraine, then it's a difficulty of training. But we're not really talking about that. We're talking about, like, if you've got a cold, sore throat, runny nose, tiredness, all that. Should you go training? Really, like I said at breakfast, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling ill, taking a day of rest to make sure that you get back to full fitness is probably most likely the case. More than 75%, you should, that day is not going to do you any issues, and if you're, say, contagious, you could go into training and then make the other people ill, and you might be okay, but then you might make other people ill. So that's even more, probably that's how I look at sort of going in when you're ill. Yes, you might be okay, but you might get other people ill, which is not really a great thing to do. You want to support the people you're training with, as well as trying to get better yourself. So taking a day not only helps you get better or feel better, but also means that the likelihood of sort of getting other people ill is greatly decreased. And again, using the phones and everything that you have to communicate with your coaches, just to let them know, okay, this is how I'm feeling, should I come in, should I not, or at least, or saying to them, look, I'm not feeling well, I'm not coming in today. And then now we've got a half hour to do on the erg, and then we'll discuss about sort of that when is ill actually ill, rather than like today I was talking about my migraine, should I come in or should I not? So when do you know that kind of thing? But like I said, if you do feel like, yep, I am ill, then just don't come in. And then I like to take sort of so say you want to take a day off for that to recover. Generally, I like to take an extra day to really sort of push everything out, and so make sure you get back to training fully not ill, fully recovered from the illness that you're having. But obviously it's not as easy as that, especially if there's any tests going on, if you've got things rowing, whatever it is that you've got going on, you might miss that if you're training. But if you do that training, that testing ill, then you're not going to perform well, and you probably will put yourself further into that illness. So it's a double attack there. So, and then taking that day off will get you back to recovered, back to the top performing athlete or top performing whatever you're doing. Taking that day off can really help you get back to there quicker. But now let's go do the half-hour hockey. And we've made it into the crew room post half hour on the erg. Unfortunately, it was a bit of a slower one today.
Still took half an hour.
Still took half an hour, but fueling up after the erg because remember, food is fuel. Probably one of the hottest ergos I've done. Full stop. Yeah, probably full stop. So that makes things very, very difficult to make sure the body is cooling down, make sure you've got enough water to sweat out. But unfortunately that was not the case, so I went about 3 splits slower, or 2 splits slower than last time. Oh yeah! But now, after blowing my doors off, it's time to fuel up. Because remember, food is fuel, and then we're talking about not going to training when ill. Oh yeah! And we've made it outside of the club for another day. Been a pretty interesting couple of days so far to begin this week off. Just with a lot of, for some reason, the gym has been extra hot, extra humid, so it makes like the ergs that little bit harder And even though you feel like you're spending more energy because you're finding it a little bit more difficult to breathe, because you're spending more energy to cool yourself down, you're not actually, the intensity of the workouts technically aren't quite the same, but even though they feel harder. So intensities are probably the same, just a different type of hardness. So it's dealing with that, not just dealing with the normal sort of going through the training program and making sure you're doing the right intensities. But we're not talking about that. That's something different for another video. We're talking about how do you know when not to go to training, if you're ill or not ill. Well, a lot of people talk about the difference between sort of if it's above the neck, if you've got, say, a stuffy nose or a runny nose or anything like that, then it's fine to train. Some people say if you're anything below sort of here, then day off. Well, I think it's really a case of, and remember, I'm not a doctor, so I recommend speaking to a doctor, speaking to a coach to really make sure what works for you. But I don't think it matters where it is, if it's below the neck, above the neck, whatever. If you're feeling ill, you are ill, and it can take a day to recover, and that'll be much better for you than, say, it is still above the neck and then you train that day and then it pushes down and it makes it worse. So I think really, if you're ill at all feeling, whether it's stuffy nose, sore throat, chesty cough, whatever it is, if you're feeling ill, you should know in yourself what that feels like if you're ill, what that ill, everyone knows what it feels like to be ill. So if you feel like you're ill, even just a little bit, then taking that day can make a massive difference over the next couple of weeks. And that's what I'm talking about before. Not only is it, okay, I could push through this illness, but what could end up happening is you push a bit harder, and then since your body's trying to fight something off, your body's working extra hard to do something, and then maybe you combine that with what I'm dealing with now with the humidity and the heat in the gym, add that on top of a little bit of illness, and then you run yourself way down, you can't recover from that. So then it can be like a snowball effect, and then it just becomes really difficult to recover from. But that's like a rarer situation. It's just really understanding your body, or trying to understand your body, and trying not, it's a really big thing of, oh, I can't take a day off because I've got something coming up. Understanding that just because you take a day off doesn't mean you're any weaker than anybody else, or that just because someone has trained for 2 years straight without a day off, they're any better than you. It just could mean that they have been around less sick people just by luck, or it could just be their immune system is just a little bit stronger and they are like that as an individual, and you can't do anything about that. So obviously taking all precautions to not be ill, and that's a whole nother video again, but if you are ill, do not go to training. 2 big reasons. One, because you can really run yourself down when you're training, when you're ill, and I think the biggest reason is you run the chance of getting your teammates ill, which is massive. And what could end up happening there, say you're the first one to get ill, you train that day, and then you make someone else ill, then they make 2 people ill and 3 people, and then by the end of the week everyone's got the sniffles and everyone's ill, and then you have a staggered effect and you've got 2 people off out of the whole team for the rest of the month perhaps. But I think that is the biggest reason. Be a little bit less selfish for that occasion. Take the day, or maybe 2, however long it is. You need to feel 100% to recover, to get over whatever it is you're feeling. But hopefully that all made sense, Yam Squad. Basically, going into winter, more people are getting ill, and it's just something we deal with as we go through the winter, and it can happen at any time during the year, but hopefully, like I said, it's all made sense. And that will be it for today's video. And as always, remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button, and I will see you in the next video.